Jordan Walker is quite the fascinating player. From a dominant stretch as a minor leaguer to an incredible AFL, and then breaking camp with the team as a 20-year-old back in 2023, it's been an interesting development for Jordan Walker, who has yet to put it together at the plate like many hoped, but also the Cardinals have kind of jerked him around a little bit. They moved him from third base to right field, where to me it looks like he's clearly uncomfortable. I mean, this is a big frame, 6'6", 250. He doesn't really move all that well in the outfield, and to me, I wonder and believe that some of that frustration, I guess, from the position change and maybe even struggles in the outfield have caused some issues with the bat. But I'm going to break down Jordan Walker's bat. Is there hope? That's my question. Is there still hope for this 22-year-old? That's even crazy to say. Walker will be 22 still on opening day. He'll be 22 for the first 2 months of the Major League season. What can we expect from the bat at this point? What can we make from his data? And what's the long-term outlook look like? So let's talk about Walker. Let's dive in. So we know that Walker, talented guy for sure. First-round pick in 2020. He was committed to go to Duke. He's a very smart guy as well. He knows baseball. He's got a high baseball IQ. So 2021, he plays in single A and high A. Obviously, no 2020 ball with the pandemic in the minors. And he was really productive. 14 homers, 14 steals, 306, 388, 510. Very solid stuff. So then Walker in 2022 goes to double A. Guess what? Continued to mash. Hit 19 home runs, stole 22 bases. Rather good athlete for this frame. 306, 388, 510. Then it was 2023 where he goes to the AFL in 2022. He comes out in 2023. He makes the team out of camp in 2023, which is pretty notable. Like I said, he was 20 years old. He breaks camp with the Cardinals, and honestly, it's just a disaster. So we go from double A to the AFL to the majors. That's a big leap for Walker. And I think the struggles were reasonable. And the interesting thing is, even when you look at the struggles, like Walker's rookie year when he was 20, 21 years old, he still had 16 home runs. He still put up some really good numbers. Like looking under the hood, he had a 116 WRC plus as a 20, 21-year-old rookie. That's pretty good. And the slash line was respectable, 276, 342, 445. I vouched for him even after the down year. And 2024 was bad. To put it nicely, in the majors, it was not great. He started with the team again out of spring training, was in the majors from the get-go. It didn't go well. Again, so they sent him back to AAA. He spends a lot of the year there. And then ultimately, Walker winds up back in the majors to end the year. So it's kind of fascinating. Like as I'm looking at the numbers for Jordan Walker, what can we expect? Obviously, it wasn't great. I do want to note that there was some really intriguing things down the stretch of the season with Jordan Walker. If you look at how he finished the last month of the season with the Cardinals, he had 91 plate appearances in September. Walker hit 5 home runs. He had 6 doubles, drove in 16. I know he didn't walk much. It's kind of an aggressive profile, which is kind of interesting, like looking at the plate discipline. He had just 253, and he had a sub 300 OBP, which is concerning. But the extra base hit power is what I want to note here. Yeah, he chased it a 41% clip in September, but the contact was there in the zone pretty much all year. He was 85% in zone contact rate. That will absolutely play. And then you look at the metrics, the barrel rate was 10% in September, 43% hard hit rate, a 115.5 max, and a 90 mile an hour average EV. So looking at the data, it's like, all right, this could play. The other issue, and something that got worse, is ground balls. It's been an issue his whole career. Ground ball rate in September was still 56%, but it goes to show you that a player with Walker's power can get by with a higher ground ball rate because he did it in September, and it was a small sample, but he can still hit home runs when he elevates. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So this offseason, he's been putting in work. Like, there's been a lot of reports on making some tweaks to the swing. I haven't seen any actual video of that, but Walker has been working on some changes to be able to lift the ball more. So let's dissect the profile a little bit, because when I look at it, it's like I actually believe that he has some lift in the profile, And like, that's what I want to look at. So last year, he spent the majority of the season in the minors. So obviously, we're going to talk about that. Like, we want to see what that looks like as far as the pitch level data goes. And so looking at Walker, I'm breaking it down like pitch by pitch. Can he elevate any pitch at all? Like, that's what I want to know and see is, can he handle certain pitch types? Or is there just a certain pitch type that he's pounding into the ground? And I think that's what's going to be telling when we break it down by pitch type. So looking at the minors, mostly what he saw was four-seam fastballs, and Walker handled them well. I mean, I get that a four-seam in the minors is a lot different than the majors, much different pitch quality between AAA and the majors, but Walker can lift a four-seam. He had a 13-degree average launch angle on those pitch types, and he had an average EV on him of 92.5 and a barrel rate of 11.5%. So no denying that he can't lift the ball against fastballs. And I think that's the first important step, is seeing like, okay, good. We're seeing some notable things here. We look, the barrel rate's good. We see the launch angle's good. There's certain things of note here that you look at and I really like. So looking at other pitch types, like, where are the struggles then? Well, he saw sliders the second most of any pitch. He had a 7-degree launch angle against those, which is getting a little lower, obviously lower than we like to see. He still hammered those pitch types. Now, there was some whiffs against sliders, a 40% whiff rate on sliders. That's worth noting because that's a major concern looking at the profile. Like, all right, we don't want to see those kind of whiff numbers. But he had a 50% hard hit rate and still an 8.5% barrel rate on sliders. So that, obviously, you look at it and I'm like, all right, that will play. So what is getting Jordan Walker then, and why is he hitting the ball so much on the ground? It's sinker ballers. Like, looking at sinkers, they killed him. He didn't see a ton of sinkers. Like, I mean, he saw 200 sinkers in AAA. He had 20% whiff rate, so, like, it's fine. That's plenty of contact, and he hit them hard. But he had a negative 2-degree launch angle on sinkers, which you look at, and there's your flaw. Like, he's pounding most of these balls onto the ground. So I'm looking at the heat map of where these are being pitched, and I'll put it up there if you're watching on YouTube, and it's not good. So you look at the chart, funny enough, like, a lot of the sinkers he struggled with are actually up and in. Like, that's not a typical sinker profile. So, like, that's an issue in itself. And most of his sinkers, like, you look at the heat map, and some of the sinkers are actually in a pretty prime location to hit. Like, these AAA pitchers weren't putting them in, like, good spots, like down and away from Walker, which he should not be pounding into the ground. So here's the thing that I'm looking at and seeing. All right, why does he have a negative 2-degree launch angle then? Well, they're jamming him up and in. He's not getting around on them, and literally he's just catching on the, like, below the barrel of the bat and just hitting them into the ground the opposite way is kind of what I'm seeing here. So other pitch types that gave him struggles, I mean, changeups, he had a 36.5% whiff rate on those in the minors in AAA, and a 2-degree launch angle. Still showed the ability to hit those hard, but he couldn't lift them. So you think like a sinker, that changeup naturally is going to have that movement profile that goes down and away, especially if it's a lefty that's pitching to a righty. And you've got righties that are running changeups in on Jordan Walker. Here's the heat map for that. So you can look at this right here. Surprisingly, he had a lot of good locations to hit changeups in the minors. So that's a bit of a concern. Like, when I'm looking at this and I say, okay, why is he not then taking advantage of these? The majority of his changeups, though, like if you look at this map, the total pitch map by the zone, he is getting them down and away. There's a struggle. He's hitting them into the ground. All right, so the major league side, smaller sample, but much more the same. He had a 20-degree launch angle on four-seamers. Again, we're not talking a big sample, but there's still plenty of contact. He made 81% contact on four-seam. He had a 45% hard hit rate and a 12% barrel rate. The interesting thing is that when you look at these batted balls on four-seam, Walker didn't have a single negative degree launch angle in the minors or the majors on four-seam. So that's obviously something of note here, that he's doing plenty fine lifting four-seam. So if he's getting them, he's likely doing damage, and we've seen that. Slider's a bit more of an issue in the majors, 2-degree launch angle. So again, something that had given him issues in the past. And honestly, the launch angles were very inconsistent. We saw some pop-ups with it. We saw a lot of big negative launch angles. That hurts. So the whiff rate against sliders, still an issue in the majors, just 49 pitches that he got. So that's obviously something to look at. But he hit them hard, though. He had a 19% barrel rate when he connected. So that's worth noting. Even with the bad launch angles, there was still some good in there. Here we go. Sinkers, negative 11-degree launch angle. This is where the minors ate him up. This is where he got eaten up here. And there was honestly, like, looking at the batted ball distribution, there were very few, like, good batted balls against changeups. He had a 16-degree launch angle that he hit 100 miles an hour. He had a 9-degree launch angle, he hit 75. Like, that's not great. He pounded one into the ground at 105. But honestly, like, pitchers really limited him by throwing him changeups. One of his hardest hit balls, 109, but it was a negative 3-degree launch angle. Sinkers have eaten him up. And obviously, like, when we were talking about Major League, the pitchers are a lot better at locating. So, like, look at the heat map. Yeah, it's much more down. Like, he had some left over the heart of the plate against the minors, but Major League changeups are located much better. So that's obviously worth a note. And the struggle against changeups, 48% whiff rate. So those are concerns. Like, you look at that, sweepers gave him fits. He lifted sweepers well, though. That's a good thing. I don't know. Like, I'm looking at this profile, and I still have some major questions. There's no denying Walker's ability to hit the ball hard. That's the next thing to note. He also handles fastballs, high-velocity fastballs, plenty well. There were no issues with forcing. Good contact, 94 miles an hour and above, good contact numbers. Up in the zone, good fast, good four-seamers. Yeah, they played. So next, let's go over and look at the power. We know it's there. There's no denying that. It's just harder for him to get to because he's hitting into the ground. So Walker's average exit velocity on fly balls between AAA and the majors last year was about 92.5. So a good mark. You'd like to see it a little higher. Line drives, he's scorched, though. I mean, we're looking at an average EV on line drives near 95 miles an hour. It's just a matter of he's not getting those batted ball types enough with a 50% ground ball rate. The overall contact skills still remain good. I mean, near 85% in-zone contact rate for both levels for AAA and the majors, that'll play. The sweet spot rate's an issue. I mean, we've established that with the launch angle. He's not hitting balls often in the sweet spot, and that's consistent both in AAA and the majors last year. His sweet spot rate in AAA was 29%. In the majors, it was 27.5%. So obviously some flaws there. You'd like to see that kind of inversed a bit and go up. The fact that he barrels so many balls, though, I think is impressive despite that. Typically, we see hitters on the kind of the opposite end of the spectrum where they are kind of outslugging their EVs because they're hitting like these ideal launch angles more often. But the fact that Walker's putting up 9+% barrel rates with those poor EVs and launching or the poor launch angles, it's pretty telling. Like, that's an encouraging sign to me because if he makes those tweaks and is able to get the ball in the air 5% more often, that barrel rate's going to soar because he hits the ball incredibly hard in the air. So we've established that. He's aggressive on pitches in the zone. Like, I like to see these numbers where he's hitting meatballs. Like, when he's getting those meatball pitches, he's swinging. So that's good. The plate discipline, it can go either way. I mean, it's below average, just we're honest. Like, the chase rate's not good. But we're looking at like a zone swing and a meatball swing minus the chase rate. It kind of balances a little bit out here. So that's a good sign, I would say. Even though I'd like to see Walker be a bit more aggressive in the zone. The hard hit rates are good, 43 to 44% in the majors and AAA, so really consistent there. The average exit velocity is nearly identical at 91.2 miles an hour for both levels, so that's encouraging. Overall contact's fine. When Walker lifts the ball, though, he's doing damage. So here's what I like to see. And this is encouraging because against Major League pitching, and I get it was a smaller sample, Walker pulled 45% of his fly balls. That's a huge positive. That there's not a ton of fly balls, but when he is, he's pulling them. Guess what? That average EV on pulled fly balls, 98 miles an hour. That's a pretty elite slugger. So the power's there. There's no denying that. The ability to make contact is fine. Like, is Walker ever going to be like a high average guy? Probably not. Like, I think we've established that at this point, but I see no reason why Walker can't be a 260 type hitter, and also see no reason why he couldn't make the tweaks and unlock 25 to 30 home run power. That is in the tank. Now, here's my struggle. As long as Walker's in the outfield, I worry that the bat's going to continue to struggle too. Here's why. He's playing completely out of position. We know that Jordan Walker's not a natural outfielder. Every metric other than his arm in the field's not good. I think if you move him off the position, I mean, if Arenado's traded, where does he go? Like, does he move? Because there are options. Like, then you have to fit Thomas to JC in the lineup, and Brendan Donovan could bump from second, so JC go to second. There's options. I mean, does Walker go back to third? Probably not, but is first base an option? I mean, I would say it's not crazy. Like, and I think that takes a little pressure off of Walker in general, because then you're just focusing on hitting more so than having to worry about being a serviceable glove in that outfield. So all that to say, Walker has the abilities. So we are talking about a 22-year-old kid, and it's also important to note that if he had gone to Duke, if he was not a first rounder in 2020 and he goes to Duke, then all of a sudden, like, he's in the 2023 draft class. Like, he spends 2021, 2022, and 2023 at Duke, and certainly wouldn't have seen him debut that soon, because he would have been entering his draft year college season, and the Cardinals had him in the majors. So that's kind of telling, just the fact that Walker is so young still, and there's still plenty of time to improve. I'm going to watch Jordan Walker real close in spring training, because I'd like to know if these swing changes that he's talking about can stick. The Cardinals have a new hitting coach, Brant Brown. I'm interested to see, like, can this work? He doesn't need to make much tweaks. I mean, there's just a couple things he needs to do to ultimately get back to where we want to see. But Jordan Walker's power is undeniable. He pulls fly balls at a high rate, and he hits the ball incredibly hard while making enough contact. So a couple little improvements, I think we could see a nice power bat here from Jordan Walker. So there you have it. Jordan Walker breakdown. It's detailed. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you did. I appreciate you.